and then we are going to dive in on today's topic, which is how to start, grow, and monetize a newsletter from anywhere in the world. We are currently going live on LinkedIn and on YouTube, and I guess some folks are on Restream as well. So we'll give 30 seconds, then we're going to jump right in. If you are here, be sure to tell your friends, tell your family members, tell anyone else. It's lunchtime here on the East Coast, so you can watch while you're eating lunch, or if you're in the West Coast, I guess you can watch during breakfast. If you're in Europe or India, you can watch during dinner.
Can we engage with the chat at all, or?
Yes. So if you are in the live chat, looks like we got someone LinkedIn user. I'm Tyler's biggest fan. But yeah, if there's any chats here, feel free to ask questions. Maybe the first thing in the final 30 seconds before we start, just comment where you are in the world and where you're watching or tuning in from. I'll go first. I'm in New York.
I guess I'll go second. I am in Costa Rica right now, so in a literal sauna.
Yeah, the background does look like a sauna. All right, let's get started. There are, or there will be, a recording for this, but obviously you're here live. You get the chance to ask Q&A. So keep the questions coming. We're going to definitely save time for Q&A at the end. But today's topic, as you can see, is how to start, grow, and monetize a newsletter. And what we're going to cover today are several things, but the flow for this presentation is going to be, we're going to start with a brief overview on myself and Doula. We're then going to run through how to actually get your newsletter started from the ground and monetize it. Then we're going to come back to Doula and discuss exactly how, when you have this business, you can formalize the business, whether it's creating an LLC or a C Corp and handling taxes. We're going to handle all that good stuff. And the best part is, without giving too much away, whether it's Doula, whether it's Beehiiv, given the technology accessible today, you can actually do this from anywhere in the world, or we'll clarify exactly some of the caveats there. But to start, my name is Arjun. I am CEO of Doula. I'm based here in New York City. I put my life history and emojis on the bottom left here. Looks like no one's from Wales, Boston, but I was born in Wales. I lost the British accent. I moved to Boston when I was 6 years old. I then spent some time in China in high school, so I know a tiny bit of Mandarin. Went to school in Philadelphia and then ended up moving to San Francisco, where I was a product manager, where I worked at Dropbox. After that, in San Francisco, it's very hard not to get the itch to start a company surrounded by so many people doing that. And one and two things led to another and ended up with Doula specifically, where we've been working on the business for about 3 years now, currently based in New York City. And when we started the business, we obviously had our first investors come in from Y Combinator, and I say obviously like that was the plan. We realized, wait a second, there was this huge opportunity here to solve a very, very pressing problem, and that is what we pitched to investors, and now have fortunately been able to help thousands of founders from all over the world solve this problem. On this screen are some of our earliest customers from France, India, the United Kingdom, and Ukraine. And the user love and really what we've been able to do has been awesome. But it really comes down to this unique problem, or what I'll call this very pointed problem that we've been able to solve. And the truth is, when we started the business, it was unclear if a non-US founder, someone who lives outside the US, could actually start a US business. To tell you the truth, I thought it was illegal. I actually did. And then we realized it's not illegal. There were just other companies that maybe didn't want to serve that client base because it's more complex, more education is involved. Realized, wait a second, there's this huge opportunity to not only serve those customers, but to help folks navigate this 10-step solution. And the truth is, there's more than 10 boxes here, which involve formation, getting a registered agent, getting up your tax number, a bank account, payment processor, a virtual mail solution, IRS tax filings, tax consultations, and more. And naively at the time, we thought, what if you could connect the dots and build this business in a box solution, which allows you to not just start a company, but run it and grow it as well, so that you can focus on what you do best while Doula handles the rest. And what you do best could be anything. You could be an influencer, you could be a creator, or like we're going to dive into today, maybe you're building a newsletter business, you're building a media company. What can you do so that you can focus on the core business and have the unsexy yet critical back office handled? And with that, we've built this platform, what we call this one-stop shop, to not just only launch a company, but maintain it. So that includes formation, getting your payment stack set up, getting a registered agent and address, and then the biggest thing, handling year over year compliance with the state and the IRS. Now, with that little overview of what Doula does and what Doula can cover, we're going to actually transition over to the star of the show, Tyler, who's going to run through how to actually start, set up, and grow a newsletter. And then we're going to come back to the business side of things in terms of clients and actually setting up a company. But Tyler, super excited to be chatting with you today. And I joked about this before we actually came on yesterday, but it feels like everyone and their mom, what I wrote, is starting a newsletter. And I think a big reason for that is tools like Beehiiv exist, which actually make it easier to do so. So super excited to dive in. If you could do a little brief intro on yourself and Beehiiv, and then let's jump into the fun stuff. How can someone go 0 to 100 or 0 to 1,000 on their newsletter?
For sure. Thanks for the introduction. I'm calling in from Costa Rica right now, so it's 100 degrees right now, so apologize for being a little sweaty. I'm going to start off with a quick 5-minute overview of the business, what Beehiiv is, and then we'll probably spend 10 minutes digging into how to create a newsletter, how to start scaling, growing, and monetize your newsletter on Beehiiv, really on any platform, but we make it super easy, and I'll kind of walk through the different steps there. To get started, we are a platform that helps people, businesses create, monetize, and scale their email newsletter. We are powering some of the largest and most notable newsletters in the world right now. On this slide, you can see Milk Road. They launched last January with 0. They grew in 10 months to over 250,000 subscribers and got acquired for a pretty large sum of money. So kind of the power of newsletters, being able to create good content, scale it efficiently, and monetize can be like a very attractive business. Some of the logos aren't loading there at the bottom. That's fine. Doesn't matter. Lots of cool newsletters and brands and businesses are sending newsletters on Beehiiv. Background, just to give a bit more context, I joined Morning Brew back in 2017 as the second employee. So I helped build the referral program. We built a content management system. We built an ad management platform to help facilitate ads being placed into newsletters and reporting that back to advertisers. So we basically had a full bespoke custom ecosystem catered for newsletter growth and monetization. I joined, we were about 50,000 subscribers. We scaled to over 3 million subscribers when I left in 2020, right before they got acquired by Business Insider. And then my two co-founders now at Beehiiv are two software engineers at Morning Brew as well. So Ben and Jake were in the trenches with me building all of this tech to help facilitate the growth and success of Morning Brew. So that's kind of a bit of a background of my background, competence, and what I've done in the newsletter space prior to Beehiiv. If you fast forward beyond the Morning Brew experience, just broadly the newsletter ecosystem, historically, you can send emails on a MailChimp or an active campaign to actually distribute the email. You can host your website on like a Wix or a WordPress. A lot of people getting started will post web content on WordPress. They'll copy and paste it into MailChimp. They're two different systems. And if you want to do premium subscriptions, if you want advertising revenue, if you want referrals, if you want audience analytics, job board surveys, these are all different platforms that aren't fully integrated with each other. And so as a small content creator who just wants to get started, get off the ground and start scaling your newsletter, or if you are a publisher or business who wants to have a newsletter as a product, there's a lot of moving pieces in the ecosystem. It's difficult to navigate. They don't work super well together. So fast forward to the next slide. That's where Beehiiv comes in. We have content tools. We have an incredible text editor. We also allow you to host your website. So we handle web, email collection, archive. We send the newsletter. So we do pretty much everything in that last slide. We have combined into a single platform. We have growth tools to help you scale, which we'll get into. We have audience tools to help you understand who your audience actually is. And then we have monetization tools. So you can take it from creating content as a hobby to creating content as a business and making actual revenue. So fast forward to the next slide. We can just brush over that. But yeah, we've been around for 2 years. A lot of users like us. We've been very user focused and really focusing on our end user and building products to help them scale and succeed. And we're just getting started. So just to add a little bit, I guess, legitimacy to who we are and why I'm speaking here. We raised $12.5 million this June from Lightspeed. We were just last week ranked the #1 most promising consumer startup by The Information. So there's clearly some sort of movement with the email newsletter space. And we've seemed to have somewhat cracked the code in terms of building a very easy to use platform that is yielding incredible results for our users to monetize and turn it into a business. So that is where I will lead you to exactly how to get started from 0 to 1 and then from 1 to 100. Step 1, super simple. It's free to sign up to Beehiiv. You can sign up, no credit card. We make everything super easy to get started. So step 1, straightforward. Step 2 would be customizing your website. So these are 2 different websites that are hosted on Beehiiv. As I mentioned before, you can create custom templates, custom themes. You can have different about pages, custom pages, subscribe forms. I mean, these are 2 very differing styles. You can kind of see the flexibility in the web builder. We've come a really long way in the web builder, and there's a long way to go. And the goal is to continue to add more customization opportunities, more widgets, more plugins, so you can really build whatever website you want without any knowledge of needing to code. So this is all built no code whatsoever. So a website is like step 1. You want to build something beautiful that can attract people to put in their email, sign up, and begin receiving your content. Step 3 would be customizing your newsletter. So these are 3 different examples of newsletters that are sent through our platform. As I'm reading this, I'm realizing that's actually their website, not the newsletter. But you can create all sorts of different newsletters very easily. Also, no code again. So a very wide range of very style forward newsletters that look amazing in the inbox. You can customize font size, background color, images, style. There's a lot you can do in email. And while it is a fairly limiting medium, we've made it extremely easy to stand out in the inbox and create amazing content that people enjoy reading. And you can kind of create your own brand and style, again, with no code. So super simple to get started. Takes like 20 minutes to customize your newsletter. Step 4 would be raising awareness and driving your existing audience to subscribe. So to get the momentum building, you're going from 0, you created a website, you created your newsletter. Now you want your friends, family, colleagues to sign up and start giving you feedback. So here's like random examples of Arnold Schwarzenegger, who has a newsletter on Beehiiv, posting on Instagram some meme to drive his traffic, his 25 million followers on Instagram to sign up to his newsletter. Sandhill is just another finance VC newsletter that launched. This is them on Twitter promoting the value prop of what their newsletter is with a link to sign up to the newsletter. And then lastly, Sports Jobs is just a notification I found on LinkedIn the other day, but people promoting their newsletter on LinkedIn to sign up, give the value prop, drive their existing audience on whether it's Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, or TikTok or whatever, to convert that to newsletter subscribers. So that's kind of like the base of building momentum. Step 5 is actually creating the content, arguably the hardest part. So having a thesis of what's the type of content you want to create, whether it's think pieces, whether it is some sort of recap of business news or finance news or fashion blogging, whatever your niche is in your industry. We have a beautiful text editor that's incredibly customizable. I keep saying no code because I think a lot of the solutions, at least when I was at Morning Brew, was all custom built. So it required a decent, heavy engineering lift. Everything we've done is drag and drop, minimalistic editor, being able to customize images and font sizes and styles and making it responsive without needing to know anything about coding or HTML. So our editor is super powerful. So creating content would be step 5. Again, arguably the most important step. 5B, to make it easier, we do have AI tools built into the editor, which is a pretty cool feature. So you can describe things, you can tweak, you can translate to different languages, you can rephrase things, but that's just kind of me showing off that we have AI tools, but it exists and it's really cool. So step 5B is the AI tool. Step 6 is like then actually growing your newsletter. So you have your website, you have your newsletter. You have driven your friends, family, colleagues, existing audience from social platforms to sign up to your newsletter. You have a thesis, you're creating content. Maybe you're using AI to help build better content or tweak your content. Now you want to actually scale your newsletter. So the referral program, anyone who has followed Morning Brew or a lot of these other quickly growing newsletters are pretty familiar with the referral program. Basically, it incentivizes your existing readers to refer net new readers and be rewarded to do so. So again, this was one of the first things that I had built at Morning Brew. It worked extremely well. We had over 1 million subscribers referred to the newsletter, and all we did was incentivize our existing readers to share with their audience in return for more content, t-shirts, mugs, hats, sweatshirts. That exact same infrastructure is built directly into Beehiiv for you to take advantage of. So you can spin up your own referral program. On the left, you'll see what the website looks like. So every single one of your readers has a unique page showing their progress and how many referrals they have. And then with one click, you can drop it into your newsletter, and all of your readers see the top of funnel, what they would receive if they share their newsletter with their audience. Step 6 is actually a little bit, there's a few parts to step 6, but it's all under the growth umbrella. So while referral program is one, recommendations is another tactic to grow. So we have a network of approaching 20,000 active newsletters in Beehiiv that are sending monthly at least. And so recommendations allows you to find other newsletters, maybe in a tangential content category, and recommend them. And then vice versa, a lot of those newsletters in turn recommend you. The way that that works is totally free. You can create a pod of 3 or 4 other content creators or publishers. You recommend their newsletters, they recommend your newsletter. When people go to sign up to their newsletter, the next page will show them, here's 3 newsletters that I really like that I recommend checking out. They can toggle that in and opt into those newsletters. Ideally, yours would be one of them. And that sends that subscriber who just submitted their email to also join your list in addition to theirs. And so when you find the right pod of 3 to 4 different content creators, it works really well, especially when some of them have a viral tweet and drive a ton of subscribers. It helps stimulate growth very quickly. And again, it's all entirely free. So that is the recommendation feature. And then pop-ups is just like SEO. We are very SEO optimized, performant. SEO is kind of a pain in the ass to do correctly. And so because we allow you to host your website on Beehiiv, we handle all the best practices, page load speeds, optimized images. So ideally, the content that you're creating, you're both sending the newsletter and publishing it to your archive and website. The website content should rank in Google. That drives organic traffic. We have pop-ups and email gates. Pop-up means like as they're scrolling, it'll pop up and ask for an email. So it's free growth. The email gate is a little bit more heavy-handed, but essentially, if you drive traffic, they actually can't read the post until they put in their email. So it's like you can't just exit out, but it drives a ton of subscribers as well. So that's just turning your existing content into free top of funnel growth and then converting them when these visitors land on the website. And then the last step of step 6 is the boost network, which should have went after recommendations to make it easier. But everything I said about recommendations, boost is basically that, but you can pay. So you could say, I'm willing to spend $2 per subscriber to grow my newsletter. You create an offer in the Boost network and Boost marketplace saying, for every subscriber you drive me, I will pay you $2. You deposit funds, call it $100 into your account. And every newsletter in the Beehiiv ecosystem can see that offer for $2 and apply to boost your newsletter. So it's the same flow as the recommendation flow. People would sign up for their newsletter, but they would see your newsletter being recommended at the top as a boosted newsletter. Anyone who opts in to be sent to your newsletter, you pay them $2. They receive $2, which is like the next step. But it's great because you only pay for qualified leads. So we don't charge you the $2 as soon as the email is added to your list. Rather, we have a bunch of mechanisms internally to make sure, is it a sketchy IP? Are they actually opening your content? Are they clicking on content? Are they coming from a geographic location or whatever? We run a bunch of different tests. So you're only actually paying $2 for real active subscribers who are reading your newsletter. So it's guaranteed quality, and it's one of the most performant channels for our newsletter. So those are like the 4 main ways to grow your newsletter. 3 of them are free. This one is like a paid one, but very competitive with what you would pay on Google or Facebook or Instagram or other paid acquisition channels. Step 7 is monetizing your newsletter. So Boost is like the flip side of that is, while on the previous slide, I was paying $2 per lead to grow my newsletter, you can also be the one that is promoting 3 different newsletters, each for $2 a lead. Some of the leads go up as high as $5 per subscriber. So you can make money from day one with your newsletter using Boost. Where I think this is super exciting is, historically, people would always ask, how big does my newsletter need to be before I can start monetizing? And it used to be maybe 10,000 subscribers would be large enough where advertisers would look in your direction and show interest for advertising. Now what you can do is sign up for free on day one with Beehiiv. You can find 5 newsletters that you want to boost, each paying $2 per lead. And so if you drive 10 subscribers a day, you're making $20 a day. So that's day one while you have 10, 15, 25 subscribers to start with. So you can actually make money from day one with every subscriber you're driving on the monetized side of Boost. Now you're making, call it $600 a month from Boost. And you can put that back into the other side of Boost, which is growing your newsletter. And now you've created this virtuous cycle of making money from day one, pouring it into growth. Now you're growing faster. Now you have a larger audience. So because you have a larger audience, your referral program would work a lot better because there's more people seeing it. So you're driving more organic growth. And then you can start attracting advertisers and other ways to monetize your newsletter at scale. So that's part one of step 7. The other way to monetize your newsletter is premium subscription. So kind of like the D2C route that you would take with a Patreon or an OnlyFans or Substack, you can charge your audience directly $10, $20, $50 a month or annual to receive premium content for your newsletter. And so the way that that works is you can gate content within your newsletter. This section is for free readers. This is only for premium readers. You can send it in a single newsletter. You can also bifurcate your list to send a newsletter just to free readers and a separate, more premium newsletter just to paying readers. With webhooks that we launched recently, you can also add people who upgrade to premium to like a private Slack or Discord community. So you can offer more than just newsletter content as a premium subscription. And that's another way that you can monetize your newsletter without having to be 100,000 subscribers big. But if you have 100 people paying you $10 a month, it's just $1,000 a month in revenue. And then lastly, on the monetized side would just be the ad network, which we launched about 2 months ago. This is very exciting for us. Basically, to scale, I mean, everything from Morning Brew, Axios, Politico, The Hustle were primarily ad-based newsletters, and that's where they generated most of their revenue. What requires to do that is a large ad sales team that understands your audience, that has relationships with different brands that are looking to spend money in email newsletters. And it's a very convoluted and time-consuming process. What we are doing at Beehiiv is aggregating, because we're sending nearly 1 billion emails per month. A lot of the top brands who are interested in advertising in email newsletters come to us, and we know their target demographic. We know all of the newsletters in our ecosystem. And so if you are a sports newsletter and we have Nike or Lululemon looking to advertise in different newsletters targeted towards a certain sport and athletic demographic, we can then bring these opportunities to you directly. And what that looks like as a newsletter in our platform is you would receive a notification that Lululemon is looking to pay $3 per click. We, based on historical data on your newsletter sends, we estimate you could make $1,500 if you were to include this ad in your newsletter. You get a premium logo at the top of your newsletter. We provide the copy, the tracking links, everything. You add it 1 click into your newsletter from the editor. And then from there, you send the newsletter like you normally would. You don't have to do any reporting. You don't have to do any invoicing. We automate all of that. You get paid out the following month based on the performance of the ad in your newsletter. We have dozens of ad campaigns live now and scaling that pretty aggressively. So this is, again, a way to have premium brands in your newsletter and to monetize without needing to be massive, without needing to hire a sales team. And so those are primarily the 3 ways that you can monetize your newsletter. And then the last one is honestly just repeat. So you launch your website, you send your newsletter, you have your referral program, you have Boost, you have automations, you're growing your list, you're monetizing, whether you're using Boost, which is always on and hands off, whether you're adding ads to your newsletter, you're growing, you're monetizing, you're taking that money, you're pouring it back into growth, and you're repeating that process as you scale your newsletter. And again, going back to the beginning of this presentation, Milk Road went from 0 to 250,000 subscribers in 10 months. So there's very much a playbook to be followed and to scale your newsletter and make real revenue. And that is how to break that down while we talking extremely quickly in 15 minutes.
Very cool. Thank you, Tyler. And by the way, for folks listening in, feel free to ask questions. We're going to carve out some time for Q&A at the end. But one thing I couldn't help but think as you went through is, honestly, I think it was that slide you had. Let me actually just go back. This slide here, which shows the world today and how you have to cobble together multiple solutions to start, run, and grow. there's a very similar parallel to how we viewed the world at Doula, where yeah, there's formation in the top, but then there's all these other things, and it's really cool to see you guys chip away at that full stack, so that even as something as simple as I publish here and I have to copy paste and post on a WordPress site or something else, no, it's all in one place. So really cool to hear there. And yeah, again, if folks have questions specifically, I know I have some. We'll save them for the end. What I want to do now is transition back over to, let's say you have, or let's say in within this this virtuous cycle, you've gotten to a point where you've launched, you're sending your newsletter, and maybe you're monetizing, you're at a point where it's time to start making some brand deals, or you're looking to do different types of sponsors on your newsletter, or maybe you're expanding your newsletter business. A lot of folks I talk to, the newsletter is a wedge into a media empire, or the goal of having multiple revenue streams from different types of media that they're putting out. And the newsletter becomes one sort of distribution channel or focus. Something that we see a lot at Doula is, when is the right time to actually become a business? Now, the truth is, and we're going to do a little crash course here on entity types, you technically do not need to form a business to start a business, especially when there's tools like Beehiiv or self-serve website tools. Hell, you could actually go have a lemonade stand, or I used to snow shovel driveways when I was younger. I didn't have an LLC. Technically, you have a business. Now, the reason why, or the biggest reason why we see folks actually form a business is twofold. Number one, in the term limited liability company, I'm going to break down exactly what that is. The word limited liability is key. The truth is, when you start a business, you are by default what's called a sole proprietorship. As a sole proprietor, technically, you can start a business, you can transact and collect revenue, but there is no veil of protection between yourself and the business. If you form a limited liability company or a C Corp, you then have liability protection. And the reason why this is important is because when you're starting a business, newsletter, selling on Amazon, whatever it might be, the last thing you're probably thinking is a lawsuit or something, some downstream or downside scenario that could happen. Having that protection is important because in the case of a lawsuit or something going wrong, your personal assets are protected versus business assets. The other thing I'll add here, though, is outside of the risk or the protection case of getting an LLC, I think the biggest thing that I've seen very qualitatively is that you as a creator or a founder level yourself up when you become a business. No longer are you just a freelancer, and everyone starts as a freelancer or someone doing a side hustle. But all of a sudden, you've gone from having a newsletter under your name to, no, I have a business, and this is my business, and this is what I do. So very quickly, the process of actually getting a company off the ground starts with formation. You then need this thing called an EIN, or a tax number. You can then get a business bank account, which can then even allow you to get business credit, which can be huge. You can get rewards, points. You can even then in the future write off business expenses when you're doing your tax return. So there's many benefits there, and I'll go through that process and timeline. But in a nutshell, there's 4 steps. The first step is actually forming your company. Now, believe it or not, you can form a company from anywhere in the world. I saw there's some folks in the US here. We have some folks in Ireland, folks tuning in from India, it looks like. You can form a US LLC from anywhere in the world. You don't have to visit the US too. It can be done digitally or remotely. I'm going to answer coming up next what's the best state to form, and keep that question on mind. But step 1 is forming a company. You're submitting documents to the state, and typically that takes about a week on average. The next step is getting what's called your EIN. This is your employer identification number. Think of your EIN as the social security number for your business. If you're born in the US or naturalized as a US citizen, the IRS, the Internal Revenue Service, and the government will assign you a social security number. That is your identifier. Similarly, when you have a business, you are given an EIN, an employer identification number, and that designates or assigns your business that number. Now, the important thing to note here is that you need an EIN if you're looking to set up a US business bank account. You cannot skip that step. A lot of people think, hey, can I form a company? I just want a business bank account so I can track my transactions, so I can even keep track of business expenses. You need an EIN to apply for a bank account. Getting an EIN is possible. You can do it online. You can hire a service like Doula, or you can do it on your own. Unfortunately, though, if you live outside the US, yes, we are in the year 2023. We're probably close to flying cars as robots, but you still have to fax a form to the IRS to get your EIN. So as a non-US resident, you can get an EIN, but you have to fax a form to the IRS. Step 3 is actually setting up your bank account. You can do this in the US by walking into any branch, a Chase, a Wells Fargo, Bank of America. If you live outside the US, there actually are a few banks that will let you open an account remotely or virtually from anywhere in the world. This is great because you don't need to fly to the US to open the account. The final step is once you have this bank account, you can then set up a payment processor. The most popular in the US is probably Stripe. You can connect that to your bank account, you can get deposits that way. You could also set up with a tool like PayPal. I'm now going to jump into two of the most common questions. The first is, should I form an LLC or a C Corp? And then I'm going to answer the question of what's the best state to form in. To give you an actual answer, because oftentimes you might talk to a lawyer and they'll tell you 12 things you could do. I'm going to tell you the one thing you should do, with the caveat that I'm not a lawyer, but we've seen thousands of customers go through this scenario. If you were raising US venture capital, you're going to need a Delaware C Corp. That's required by US investors. That doesn't mean you can't raise capital with an LLC, but to make it pretty simple, US investors, institutional or angel, will require a Delaware C Corp. If you are not raising venture capital, to make it very simple, 999 times out of 1,000, an LLC is going to be the way to go. You get the liability protection, you have the tax flexibility. You could elect to have it taxed as an S Corp, as a C Corp. You can keep it taxed as a disregarded entity or a sole prop, so it's a pass-through entity. But the biggest benefit here is that C Corps are actually taxed at two levels. There's a corporate tax, and then any profit or revenue that passes through is taxed on an individual level. With an LLC, it's a pass-through entity, meaning profit and revenue passes through, and you pay that on your personal return. So with the tax flexibility, there's less upkeep, and that pass-through taxation, LLCs provide that liability, they provide that credibility, and you get the ability to get a business bank account and even business credit down the line. The next question that comes up, and really quickly, there's just a summary here of some of the main benefits of LLCs versus C Corps. And you'll effectively see that C Corps are structured and designed to easily give equity, and they're preferred by US investors. And that's the biggest reason why, if you are raising venture capital, you should form a C Corp. If you are not, though, to keep things really simple, an LLC is the way to go. Now, you might be thinking, what if I'm not sure? If that's the case, my actual recommendation would be start with an LLC, because it's easier to go from LLC to C Corp than it is to go the other way around. What I typically recommend is, unless you are dead set on raising venture capital or you have a check in hand that's ready to come in, probably starting with an LLC is the way to go. The next question, which we get all the time, is, okay, I'm ready to form, I want to establish my business. What's the best state to form in? The other thing I'll touch on is that forming an LLC can cost several $100s. It's really not that expensive. And the truth is, for that several $100s, you're getting peace of mind. You're getting the liability protection, the credibility, the ability to get a business bank account, and down the line, potentially have business tax write-offs. To answer the question very concretely on the best state, I've asked this question many times. We've polled, we've checked the numbers. If I were to ask this group, what's the best state to form an LLC in? Over 90% of people say Delaware. That's actually the incorrect answer. The answer is, if you live inside the United States, the best state to form your LLC in is the state that you live in. And the reason for that is, by living in the state, you actually do business in the state. That's defined as where you are physically based and where you're doing business, which can be sending emails, doing calls, checking your email, whatever it might be. If you have a physical presence in another state, technically you're doing business there too. So the advice or guidance is, if you live in the US, the best state to form in is the state that you live in. And the reason for that, and we see this mistake all the time, is, let's say I live in New York and I learned that, whoa, Delaware is a pretty sexy state for business formations. There's actually been more businesses formed in Delaware than the amount of people in Delaware. Pretty wild. It's the most popular state. But let's say I live in New York and I formed an LLC in Delaware. Might sound great. I have a Delaware LLC. I get to say I have that. But what I just did was I opened myself up to double the fees. Because I live in New York and I do business here, I now need to do a foreign qualification, which is the fancy term for registering my Delaware LLC to do business in New York. I need to get a registered agent. I need to pay for annual filings. I need to maintain this business in 2 states now. So just like that, an innocent mistake, I've doubled my fees there. The next part of this, though, is if you live outside the US, you can actually choose any state in the US to form your LLC in. So you might be thinking, okay, if I can choose any state, what's your recommendation? I'll actually give you one. The 2 most popular states we see are Wyoming and Delaware. Delaware, you've heard some of the reasons why. Most popular state for formations in the US. The bigger thing, though, is that there is a sense of prestige from Delaware. However, don't sleep on Wyoming. At Doula, Wyoming is actually the most popular state for non-US residents forming an LLC. And the biggest reason for that, there's a couple. The first Don't sleep on Wyoming. The original LLC was actually invented in Wyoming. They're very forward first. They're proactive in terms of legislation. Number two is it's actually a great state for e-commerce businesses and digital online businesses, which in this day and age is most businesses, whether it's a newsletter, you're an influencer, or you're just selling something online. You're an online digital business. Number three, there are great tax rates there, even if you are abroad, but especially if you're in the US. But the biggest thing I would say in terms of sale or costs is the annual fees are cheaper. In Wyoming, there's a $60 state tax or fee that's made to the state. In Delaware, it's $300. Now, that might not sound like much, but hey, when you're starting a business, every dollar adds up. And if you can get the LLC, the EIN, liability protection, and save $240 per year, that can be pretty meaningful once you're getting started. Couple other things I want to go through. The biggest thing that we've learned, and this is why we started the business, is that a lot of folks think, okay, I got to get my company formed, but they don't realize there's a lot that has to happen after. Now, it might seem complex, but what we did in this diagram was actually just map out the key milestones and things that you have to keep in mind after you form a business. So on the left here, you can see what we covered in terms of formation. Forming your company, getting an EIN, applying for a bank account, and setting up your payment processor. That can typically take a few weeks. It depends on the state or the IRS as a dependency. These other four yellow boxes are things I want to call out. The first is you're going to need a registered agent. Think of this as a liaison. It's someone who sits in an office in the state who gets IRS mail and state mail, scans it, and uploads it. It's a requirement. We do not recommend you serve as a registered agent too, because then one, your address will go on the public record. And two, you actually need to hold office hours from 9 to 5, 5 days a week, and be physically present in the office too. It's a massive pain. You can outsource it, let someone else handle it. The two other big buckets of things you need are tax filings and accounting. The two big state or tax filings you'll need is each year there's an annual filing made with the state. That's the Delaware franchise fee or the Wyoming annual report. The other thing is your IRS federal tax filing. Now, if you are a non-US founder starting a US company, you actually might not have a US income tax obligation, but you are required to make an IRS informational filing. You can't get around the filing. But just to be clear, you might not have a US income tax obligation. If you live inside the United States and are a US citizen, you're paying income tax in the US. And again, an LLC is a pass-through entity, meaning profit and revenue trickles through, and you would pay that on your individual return. When it comes to the IRS filing, there's two key deadlines. If you are a multiple member LLC, you have to file in March of each year for the previous year. If you're a single member LLC, so less than any more than two people, you file in April of each year. The final piece is ongoing bookkeeping. And a lot of people ask, do I need a bookkeeper or do I need accounting when I start a business? The candid answer is no. When you're just starting, you actually don't need it. It's not a blocker. But what I would strongly recommend is that you set up a business bank account as soon as possible so that all of your business transactions and spend are at least organized there. Then what can happen is typically your CPA or the person doing the filing can at least look through those transactions and do the books easily. But the bigger reason why is it is important to separate personal and business spend. That allows you to, again, in the future, make write-offs. But it can get messy when you do combine those two buckets. It's actually illegal to write off a personal expense as a business expense. So the easiest thing you can do to even avoid that is once you're getting started, get that business bank account set up, and then put your existing spend into that business card. Couple just final pieces on Doula. We've tried to make it very affordable just to start the company. Again, for peace of mind, a couple $100s, but it's very critical to us that we actually are able to help with and provide what we call total compliance, which covers these key yellow boxes on the right, which is bookkeeping, a registered agent service, IRS federal tax filings, and then state annual filings as well. You have a dashboard. We like to share this as you have access to your company anywhere, anytime, on the go. And think of this as the central operating system or the cockpit for your business, where there's documents. You can access rewards and pools and perks. Let's say you want to set up a HubSpot account for sales, get a perk there. If you want to set up a Beehiiv account, you can set up a link there too. You can access your bank account, even your books. And the biggest thing that we've realized is that founders are just tired of forming a company and feeling like they've been thrown to the wolves. And we wanted to provide a solution where everything is in one place. So you can not just start, but run and grow your company there. Because at the end of the day, as a founder, regardless of what business you're setting up, time is the most valuable asset. And if we realized and think there's ways that we can help you spend more time on what you do best, We'll take care of that unsexy yet critical back office and give you a better chance of growing your business. Again, this is a little comparison grid. We very purposefully tried to make our initial starter package very affordable. It's very fast, completely digital. It takes about 5 minutes online to go through and enter information. And with that, saw that there's been some questions coming in. So here's what we're going to do. We're just going to start from the top. I'm going to present questions on the screen. And as a reminder to folks who may be tuned in halfway, this will be recorded. You have our Twitter accounts on the screen here, and we can leave a little plug at the end. But let me do this. I'm going to start popping in some of the first questions. So let me pop this onto the screen here. First question from Tim. In your experience, what are prime motivators for users to subscribe and stay with a newsletter? Example, who is the author, the content, interest? Tyler, I think this one's for you.
Unless you want to answer it, you can take it.
I'll try after you, actually. I'll give you my take.
Yeah. So from my experience, it's probably a combination of one, content. Like, content is king. If it's providing value, people are depending and learning on it, learning things from your newsletter, they'll continue to open and read it. So content, and also author. So whether it's like creator economy or just following people that you admire, that you care about, that you want to learn about their perspective and support their work, who the author is and following their content, just like you would on Instagram or TikTok, is probably the other main reason. But content and the content creator, I'd say.
I'll give my perspective from the consumer side. I do think the content is king, completely agree. But then I realized if I have some personal connection with the person, even if I go a couple of weeks without reading the email because I know the person or I feel like I know them from content, I'm more likely to stick with them. So I think it's both. It's the personality, and then you can't. There's no hack to creating the content. Whether it's the AI generated content, just putting out the content there and having the thesis, I think sounds super important.
I'd also just double down and say, like, content is the most important thing. So while I walk through the 8 steps of how to quickly grow your newsletter and monetize, you can't overcome terrible content. So you could have the greatest growth loops. You could pour money into Boost. You can have like the best incentives for the referral program. But if the content isn't good, you're going to be growing net new subscribers and then churning old subscribers who aren't receiving value. So you can't overcome not providing value and not creating good content.
Next question. How long until Beehiiv's ad network is likely to have offers for UK-based newsletters?
Yeah, I'd say, admittedly, I think most of our live campaigns right now are probably US focused. The goal is to expand and have advertisers in a global market at some point. We may actually have a few campaigns that are UK acceptable, or like we're looking for impressions and customers in the UK and Europe. So you can shoot me an email, tyler@beehiiv.com, whenever, with questions. I can confirm on my end if we have any advertising campaigns that are focused in the European market. But the goal is, if not now, by Q1 of next year, we should have a much more global advertising and campaign base.
This wasn't a question, but I'll pop it up here. Beehiiv is genius, just upgraded to scale. So there you go. Little upgrade on the call. Another question. Can you connect a pre-existing website to Beehiiv?
Yes. So while we, and like what I showcased earlier, is being able to spin up your own website on the Beehiiv platform with no code, we do play nicely and integrate with any third-party website provider. So whether you have a WordPress site, Webflow, Wix, Squarespace, Shopify, you can push content via RSS or API or webhook and pull your content into that website. Or vice versa. You can collect leads on any website, form, card, whatever, and send via API to our backend. So TLDR, yeah, we integrate with any third-party platform.
Awesome. And question from Tim, is Doula able to handle payroll at this time? Not yet, wink, wink, but as of now, we do have partners which you can use to leverage payroll. So, for example, we have a partnership with a company called Gusto, which can let you do payroll in the US. There's other companies like Deal or Remote if you're hiring more internationally. But the good news is you can integrate with banking offerings that we partner with, and effectively use, again, your company and your EIN to set up on some of these US payroll platforms as well. Okay, with that, it looks like that was the questions that came in from the live stream. You see our Twitters here. Tyler, what's the best way to get in touch outside of Twitter? And then maybe final question I'll ask is, what's your biggest goal, or what are you most looking forward to in 2024 for Beehiiv as well?
It's a great question. I would say the ad network's like our big bet of what we're investing heavily in. I've seen the power at scale at Morning Brew of being able to get top brands and advertisers driving money and performing really well in the medium of email newsletters. I've also seen the amount of bandwidth and staffing it takes to do that really well. And I think being able to take that experience and provide advertising opportunities and opportunities to monetize your newsletter to anyone that has 500 subscribers to 500,000 and be able to drive real impactful revenue can like obviously change the game in terms of being able to reinvest in growth or building a business or building a lifestyle business or something larger. So we are 2 months into the ad network. It's working really well. We have dozens of campaigns, but 2024, ideally we're in like the hundreds of live advertising campaigns. We are dishing out ads. If you want an advertisement, you want to turn the monetization switch on for your newsletter, it's available, it's accessible, and it works well. So that's kind of our big goal for 2024.
Love it. And best way to get in touch: Twitter, email, both? Any other platforms?
Probably most active on Twitter. So Dank, DENK underscore, oh, it's right up there on the thing. So Dank underscore tweets. I'm probably most active on Twitter, but LinkedIn, email I gave earlier, Tyler@beehiiv.com. I'll respond to whatever.
Awesome. Thanks a ton, folks. I hope you enjoyed this. Again, the recording will be on YouTube. Thanks for listening on LinkedIn as well. And if there are any questions, again, you can check out doula.com. My Twitter is my full name here as well. Active on Twitter, also on LinkedIn as well. And I'm just Arjun at doula.com as well. Thank you so much again, everyone. And if there are any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. And let this be the sign, if you are listening and don't have a newsletter that you started, or you're on the fence, or maybe you're on the edge of starting a business, let that be the sign. Obviously, we'd be happy to help on both sides. But to me, the biggest thing is just it's really fun to see people take that initial leap and just start and try. Kudos to you at the end of the day. It's very easy to be a critic and to say, oh, that was a dumb idea or that's silly. But end of the day, you tried. And I think that's the most important thing. So this is the sign you've been waiting for. Start that newsletter, start that business, and reach out to Tyler if you have any questions.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.